you want to run an international race, that's a great idea, as long as you don't make these mistakes. First mistake you can make is not booking your accommodation far in advance. Let's think about it. The big international races that are drawing crowds and you're probably looking at running will have upwards of 10, 20, 30,000 people. Let's look at the Paris Marathon, for example. They just released some statistics on their almost 50,000 runners, only 17% of them are from Paris. That means the other roughly 40,000 people need to get a hotel in the city of Paris. As soon as you get confirmation of a bib, you should be booking your hotels. The second mistake that you can make is booking a flight that only arrives one day before your race. And you might say, it's a whole day. Even if there's a delay, that's okay. What about bib pickup? How are you gonna get your bib if your flight suddenly switches from a 10 a.m. arrival to a 10 p.m. arrival? Not every race lets people pick up bibs on the morning of the race. So give yourself at least one extra day of leeway, so that way, if something goes wrong and you miss out on that very first day, you still have another whole day to pick up your bib and get yourself situated in this new city before race day. This next mistake is a mistake that I've had to learn the hard way, and that is counting on Google Maps and a cafe as your breakfast option. Don't do it. Trust me, I've made that mistake. I'll go on Google the night before a race and I'll say, there's 5 different options for cafes in the city that are all gonna be open when I wanna have breakfast tomorrow. And I'll look at their menus and I'll be like, perfect. They have avocado toast or eggs or whatever it is I was looking for that day. And then I wake up the morning of the race, they changed their hours. They didn't feel like opening, someone was late, and suddenly I'm in Malaga running around the city at 7 a.m. being like, where can I eat food? And you know what I ended up doing? I ended up getting a piece of untoasted bread and a banana. Let me tell you, that race was hard. Go to a grocery store the day before your race and figure out what you want to eat that you can make in a hotel room and count on that for your breakfast. Do not count on cafes unless you're open to the idea of not having food. Another mistake that runners can make when they're traveling for an international race is not thinking about how their energy gels are in fact liquids. That means if you're traveling carry-on only, you need to make sure your energy gels go into the special bag you have for your liquids. I know you might have to get rid of your shampoo or count on hotels or something else, but you want to make sure your energy gels have space in that bag. And this goes into the next mistake that people make, which is leaving your energy gels at home and just saying, I'm gonna get that when I arrive in XYZ city. No, you're not. No, you're not. Any other day you might be able to get them. But if you're telling me that you're planning to put all your marathon training and all your prep on the fueling system of, it's gonna be in the city, I promise you that day it's gonna be sold out. So unless you can do without the item on race day, bring it with you from home. Especially if you're traveling from the US to the European Union, there might be different ingredients. So even if they have the same items and you can find them, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing you've been training with. I will always be guilty of this next mistake, and to be honest, I'm not sure it's really a mistake, but it is something you need to be aware of when you're traveling for an international race, and that is don't get carried away sightseeing and protect your legs. It's so easy when you're seeing a new city to walk 20, 30, 40, 50,000 steps in a day, but your legs are gearing up for a half marathon or a marathon. They need the rest. So pick out some museums, some parks, and just sit around and spend a day relaxing your legs as best you can. That being said, I know I will almost always be guilty of walking too much the day before a race and also walking too much the day after the race. I love sightseeing. But just be aware of it so that way you can make the choice to relax or make the choice that you're not going to relax. Make it a choice though and not an accident. The 7th mistake on our list is just forgetting gear. When you're packing for an international trip, you're already going to have a lot of stuff going on. But if you're packing for an international trip with a half marathon or marathon, there's gonna be a lot more stuff you need to bring. Do you wanna do a shakeout run? That's another outfit. Do you have your hat, your belt, your watch, charging cables, headphones? There's so many more things you need to think about when you're running a marathon or a half marathon internationally, just in terms of the supplies that you're bringing. So I would recommend in the weeks leading up, sitting down before every run and just writing down what you're running with and making sure you have a list of every single thing that you will need. And then double checking that list before you leave to make sure all of those things are actually in your bag. Depending on where you're traveling for your international marathon, you might have struggles staying hydrated. You always hear jokes about how when you're traveling in Europe, nobody gives you water. And for the most part, I would say those are not true. It's very easy to get water. And then I went to Spain and I was running a half marathon in Malaga and I could not get water. It was such a struggle. I finally had to buy myself a 2-liter bottle and just walk around for the rest of the day, just guzzling it down. The same goes for carbohydrates. You always talk about carbo loading, and most people recommend that you start your carbo loading 2 or 3 days before the race, which means you're gonna be in a new city, you're probably not gonna be controlling everything, you're gonna be eating at restaurants, and you're gonna have to think about carbo loading. So just don't forget the basics of fueling up pre-race while you're traveling. Another mistake you can make is skipping your shakeout run. If you're flying, your legs want to move. They want to do the shakeout run. Let them do a shakeout run. And on top of that, you have the opportunity to meet some really cool people when you sign up for a shakeout run in a new country. If you're coming from the US, this mistake can really hurt your morale. And that is expecting things to be the same as in the United States, specifically when we talk about crowds. The US, I've found, has always had a very strong cheering culture at races, and there's always going to be people there with signs supporting you and ready to cheer you on. They're proud of you. That is not the same everywhere. So if you have that expectation that, oh, I'm going to handle the last 5K or the last 10K using the motivation from the crowds, no, you might not. I'm sorry. You might have to just dig deep into yourself and cry in pain, because some countries just have really bad crowds or no crowds. Spinning off of that is the next mistake, which is not reading race reviews before you sign up. Some of the race reviews can actually give you an idea of what type of crowds to expect. For example, I put out a race review for every half marathon and marathon I do, and I always touch on the crowds because I think that's a huge part of the racing experience, and you should know what to expect there. But just checking in on the race reviews is always really helpful, even when a course is saying, oh, we're flat, we're so flat. No, they're not. No, they're not. That is marketing BS. Don't listen to a course if they say they're flat. Listen to other runners, because there certainly are some really nice flat courses, but there's a lot of courses that actually have a few hills scattered in that the race organizers just kind of go, I can't see it, when they're writing up the reviews. This is a big one in Europe, and sometimes it's very, very clear, but sometimes it's hidden away. So if you're signing up for a race in Europe, make sure you head to the FAQ section and see, do they need a medical certificate? Because I have run races in France and Italy that need medical certificates, and sometimes it's right there while you're signing up. Oh, you need to add a medical certificate. But other times, like when I signed up for the Paris Marathon, it was hidden down like 3 pages of information. And luckily, I already had a medical certificate from previous races, but it would have been a total bummer if I had missed this information and shown up empty-handed. That being said, don't let needing a medical certificate discourage you from signing up for the race. Most of the races will provide you with a template to bring to your doctor, and then as long as you're getting yearly physicals, you can bring that to your doctor and say, hi, can you sign this? And they will. It's going to be a super simple process, and then you upload it and you're done. It just sounds really scary, like, oh my gosh, they need all my medical information. No, they just want some liability release. That's it. This mistake is a mistake you can make no matter what country you're running in. If you're running a race in your home country, in your hometown, or if you're running a race on the other side of the world, you can make the mistake of not sleeping the night before the race. But if you're running a race on the other side of the world, you are going to be factoring in jet lag. And so suddenly that, oh my gosh, I can't sleep before the marathon is going to be compacted by, oh my gosh, I can't sleep because I'm 5 time zones from where I'm usually at. They say it takes 1 day for every hour of time zone for your body to acclimate. So if you're traveling really far, I would recommend putting more time on your trip in front of the race instead of behind the race. And my last piece of advice is going to revolve around the hotel. You're there for a half marathon, you want to sleep. And if you end up in a really noisy hotel, you're probably not going to sleep well the night before. On that same note, I would recommend, if you're looking to stay in a hostel, to look if there are any pod hostels available. I've stayed in a couple of pod hostels before races, and I find they're really helpful because yes, you're sharing a bathroom, but your bedroom is very private, very quiet, very secure. And worst case, bring some earplugs. I hope you have a great time running your international race. I love running international races, and it is what re-inspired my love of the entire sport. If you like this video, like and subscribe because all I talk about is international races and travel.